Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is going to be another in my RHCSA practice session series where I'm not necessarily giving authoritative information, but rather I'm going through objectives as if I was preparing for the exam, just to give you an idea of how you might be able to prepare for the exam. The objectives we're going to look at in this video are under the Manage Containers objective list, and that is run a service inside a container and configure a container to start automatically as a systemd service. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, and also want to encourage everyone, if you enjoy the content of the video, make sure you click like, and also if you have not subscribed yet to the channel, make sure you click that subscribe button and ring the bell so you can be aware of when new content is available. So you'll notice here I'm actually on a Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 VM rather than CentOS Stream. And the reason being is one of the things that we're going to be doing here actually at the time of making this video, which is December 21st, 2020, this particular task running in a non-privileged or running as a non-privileged user will not work with CentOS Stream, and it's going to be fixed eventually. I'm pretty sure there's a bug report already there about it, but to be able to demonstrate it in the actual user space, I wanted to do this on an actual Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 VM. What we're going to be doing is running a service inside a container, and the service we're going to use is none other than good old Apache HTTPD. That tends to be one of my go-to services for doing some of these practice exercises because it's easy to get it up and running, and it's pretty easy to determine, if everything is actually functioning well with a web server. Either it'll serve the page or it won't serve the page. Pretty easy with that. So I'm going to do a podman search for Apache, and we're going to grep for rel 7 because I know that the image I want ends in rel 7. And as you can see, I've already installed the container tools on this particular VM. So we're going to do podman run. We're going to give this a name. We're just going to call it httpd_1. We're going to do a few more flags here. The -d, I, and t, which I could do -d, -i, -t if I wanted to, refers to this is going to be detached as far as it will be able to run in the background, and INT means that it'll be able to be interacted with and emulate a terminal. The -p stands for publish, and I know that it's possible to give this a particular IP address to use, which I believe we can do with the -p command. What I'm going to be doing is specifying a port, and the first number that I'm specifying with this is going to be the port that our local host, or rather it's the port published to the local host that will map back to a particular port that's in use by the container. And so I'm just going to use 7000, just a random number that I've chosen, and that's going to map to 8080 on the container. If I wanted, I could have put a previous colon there and specified an IP address. I have not tested that, and so what this basically does is any IP address that is available on your system, port 7000 at that IP address is going to map to 8080 on your container. And then we will paste in the image that we want to use and press enter. So it takes a few seconds for it to download what it needs. And after a few seconds, it completes, and we will now have a functioning container, or we should. Famous last words in IT, right? So let's do a podman ps. I specifically did not do ps-a because I wanted to make sure that the container was running. Also want to thank some user feedback. A person put a comment on one of my videos saying, hey, why don't you maximize your terminal window so that way things like podman ps are a little bit easier to read, which this isn't totally maximized. Sometimes I get some stuff that gets cut off when I'm doing my recording, but it's a little bit larger than normal, so thanks for that feedback. And we can see that the name HTTPD1 is running and its status is up. You can also see the mapping of ports. So basically any IP address on our host at port 7000 is mapping to 8080 TCP on the on the container itself. So to test if this is going to work, let's open Firefox. And we'll do HTTP localhost and then port 7000. And there we have the Red Hat Enterprise Linux test page, which is exactly what we wanted to do there. Now let's say that we do this. I'm actually going to, well, we'll keep Firefox open. Let's go back to our terminal. I'm going to use podman exec, and we want, I believe IT is what I want for exec. If this doesn't work, we'll check it out on the man page. And we want our container, httpd1, and we want to run bin bash in that. Yep, there we go. And so now we are in bash. Who am I? I am the default user, and let's see if we can do what we want. What I want to do is add a text file to our little web server here. And we're going to see how well this works. So we'll go into var www HTML, and let's try this. So we'll echo testing web page to test.txt. All right, and let's go back to here and let's see if this works. Lo and behold, we have our web page. So this is a functioning container that we have mapped to port 7000 on any IP address that is on our host, and thus we are running a service inside of a container. And then obviously if I were to do podman stop httpd_1, and then let's use curl this time. Let me clear my screen. Curl HTTP localhost 7000. Connection refused. It can't connect to it. And so therefore, you know, our container is now down. So the next task is we need to configure the container to start automatically as a systemd service, because the best that I've seen so far with some of my own testing and learning is there isn't a way to tell Podman, hey, always start this VM, right? Now, if there is, feel free to leave that in the comments. I haven't found it yet, but as I've said in several of these videos about containers, I am not a master of containers by any stretch of the imagination. Rather, I'm learning about this well enough to prepare myself. If I were to have had to take the RHCSA exam again today, I would be able to handle the concepts. But what we want to do is basically turn this into a service that systemd would use to have this service enabled and running. The big reason for this is because, as you know, with everything in the RHCSA, whatever you do has to persist and has to survive a reboot. So the question becomes, how do we make this into a service? And what we're going to use, I'm actually going to go into the man pages for Podman, and I'll show you the command here. We'll be using the podman generate command. And within podman generate, we will be giving it the systemd command, and what that's going to do is give us a unit file for a service. So if I were to just do podman generate systemd httpd_1, there is our unit file. And it has everything configured that you need. It has whatever once within the unit file, has the install block, everything that you need. Notice how it is basically using the Podman executable to start this particular container, and then if it were to stop, it's just doing the exact same thing there. So the thing to remember is I've made this in my user space right now, because I did not sudo in the root. I pulled down the image and I made the container there. So therefore we have to use the user, for at least for this particular example, we would have to use the user space for systemd. And to be able to make this work, let me clear my screen here. We're actually going to go into a hidden folder. We're going to go into the .config folder. And in this .config folder, we're actually going to make a folder called systemd. And then within the systemd folder, we are going to make a folder called user. Maybe mkdir will work a little bit better than cd for making my folder. Let's go into the user folder. We'll clear our screen. And now we're going to run the same command, generate systemd httpd1, but we're going to redirect the output to a file. And basically we're making our unit file out of this. We're going to call it httpd_1.service. All right, so we have our file there. If we were to cat that, we have the unit file. So right now, if I were to do systemctl status, actually I'm going to do --user because we're doing this within the user space, status httpd_1.service, nothing's going to be found because systemd is not aware that this unit file is available. So what we'll need to do, systemctl --user, and we want daemon reload. And now if we do that status again, we see that systemd recognizes this and it is inactive. So the way that we're going to make this persist for our exam is use systemd just like we would any other system, except this is going to be within our user context. Systemctl --user, we're going to enable httpd_1.service, and I'm going to go and use --now, which will allow this service to go ahead and start. It makes the symlinks like what we want, and if I were to do podman ps, we see that our container is running. If I were to curl http localhost and then :7000 for the port, test.txt, we have our web page. And this is going to survive a reboot because we now have this as an enabled service using systemd. What I would like to do is show you the same thing with CentOS Stream to show you what you might need to do a little bit differently in your lab if you don't have access to Red Hat Enterprise Linux and you're wanting to test the same functionality. So here we are back on good old CentOS Stream, and if I were to do the same command again, so podman run name httpd1 and dit, do the same port 7000 to 8080 and use the same image. It's going to pull down the image, shouldn't take too terribly long for this, and then try to make the container, and then it's going to give you an error. And this is a known thing. Basically, your unprivileged account doesn't have the permissions to be able to make this particular container happen. And from what I gather, I believe it has to do with the publishing of ports. Not 100% sure of that. So if you wanted to do this on a CentOS system, Now, this might not be true for CentOS 8.2. I know it is true for Stream. I have not tried this on CentOS 8.2 yet. So if we sudo -i and run the same command again, now it's having to pull down the image because this, this is user specific rather than we're pulling the image for the entire system. And this time it should, famous last words in IT, right? Create the container with no problems. All right, there it is. So let's clear the screen. Podman PS shows that the container is running. And if I were to curl HTTP localhost 7000, we get the HTML that would be the basic web page that comes up. So not terribly exciting. The short version of the story is just run it as root and then things should work well for you. But what I wanted to show you was for RHEL, you can do this as a rootless container, but at this time of the recording, that's not possible in CentOS Stream. So as always, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Remember that if you do enjoy the content, make sure that you click like for the video. And if you have not subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do click that subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you can be aware of when new content comes available. And as always, I will see you the next time.